In this video, I'll help you understand posted transactions, their source, their origin, and their type. I'll provide you with tools that help you dig a little deeper into system entries and validate what can sometimes be complex postings. How has an update impacted the system? And how do I get back to the source document that generated it? And why has the system generated so many entries in the first place? Let's get into it. The first tool that we'll see throughout Dynamics is the transaction origin. Here, I'm viewing a random ledger transaction in the general ledger. Let's select a line and see what is behind it. We might simply be asking the question, what is the origin, or where did this posting come from? Let's pick this line and then the transaction origin in the action pane. The transaction origin window will open and show me all of the ledgers and subledgers impacted by this transaction. Here, we have 7 different ledger codes, 1 supplier code in the subledger, and 1 stock subledger update. With a little look across to the name of the accounts, we can quickly draw the conclusion that this is a supplier invoice update that has reversed some accrual postings, updated the inventory valuation, and added an outstanding invoice value to the supplier's account. If we enter this window from any of those 9 locations, we will get the same result. To check, let's go to the supplier account TJ01. Here is the transaction in the subledger. From the subledger, the transaction origin is not immediately available. First, we need to get to the voucher. Now, from here, the transaction origin is available. And we are back in the same place. Let's check one more example from the voucher transactions list. Here is a value in the product sales account. Let's check. We have updates to the profit and loss account for sales, the balance sheet account for debtors control, and the update of the invoice on the customer subledger, which all looks normal. Perhaps, in a production environment, we might expect some tax transactions too, and maybe some cost of sale entries, but in the demonstration data, we can understand this simple example. So, whenever you are navigating around, looking at voucher postings, and you would like a wider view of the system impacts, particularly in the associated subledgers, look for the Transaction Origin button to get started. Next, we'll see another tool to help identify the origin of the transaction. The Original Document feature is another tool that is found on nearly all transaction lists. If you are looking at a voucher window, customer or supplier transactions, or a list of inventory movements, you will see the Original Document feature. Let's take our familiar customer transactions as an example. If I select this INV voucher with an associated invoice number, and select the Original Document option in the Action pane, Dynamics will show me the source of this transaction. Here, it is important to note that the source of the invoice is not strictly speaking, just the physical invoice document. The real source is the sales order that generated it. You can see on screen that Dynamics provides me with both options. A document in Dynamics is not just a piece of paper, or a screen print of a physical document. The document might be, as we have here, a sales order, or a purchase order, or a general journal, or a purchase invoice journal, and so on. From the screen, I can now select if I'd like to view the sales order, or the order invoice. Let's take the invoice first. I can either take the View Details option, which shows a screen view of the invoice elements, like this. Or I can print preview to see the physical representation that the customer received. Let's follow up on the example from part 1, where we were viewing entries in the voucher transactions window. If I take this line and query the original document, I can see it came from a journal. I can view the details again, to navigate back to the original input lines. As one final example, let's take this line, which we also used in lesson 1. This has 3 documents. First, a purchase order was created, and we can navigate to see that. Second, an invoice journal was posted in the invoice register, which generated an invoice entry on the supplier ledger. So, in its purest form, using the original document option will take you to a print preview of a physical document, like a sales invoice. But more commonly, when investigating posting entries and their source, you can use the original document option to get back to the raw input from the user. This is very useful. Seeing the original content as input by the user before an entry was posted can give valuable context to the subsequent posted entries that you are investigating. In the next part, we'll see how the posting type and transaction type can help you unpick complex posting profiles. The 2 features we'll show in this section will help you understand how to unpick some of the more complex posting functions. One thing to remember is that Dynamics makes many postings that are temporary, depending on your exact configuration. These are then reversed later. Usually, the voucher numbers of these transactions are different, so you often need to knit together multiple vouchers in order to see a full picture. The transaction type and posting type help us understand what the entry is, and how Dynamics decided to post to that particular account. You will find the transaction type and posting type on any voucher, but depending on screen layout, they are not always in the same place. Here is an example from the voucher transactions inquiry that we used earlier. The posting type can be seen on the main field list, although you may need to scroll across to see it. The transaction type may be shown here also, or look to the General tab to see both together. Here, I have personalized my form, so that I can see both on the main screen. So, what do the transaction type and posting type represent? Firstly, they tell me from their text a lot about the origin of the transaction. And secondly, they allow me to look in the posting profile to check the correct accounts are updated. For this voucher, there are a total of 8 updates with a value, which we can interpret with a little additional help from the account code name. Let's try to unpick this one. With a little experience, we can quickly interpret what type of transaction generated the posting. We have updates to the supplier ledger, accruals, stock, and purchase order accounts. This will have been generated by the matching of an unapproved invoice in the register to a purchase order receipt in the invoice approval process. The setup in the demo environment is perhaps slightly over-engineered, so you may see less postings on your own production environment. The first thing I see on screen are 4 entries related to the balance account for creditors control. Lines 1 and 2 are transaction type supplier, so these come from purchase ledger setup. These entries, 1 credit and 1 debit, are the reversal of the invoice register entry for the invoice. Lines 4 and 5, again, 1 credit and 1 debit, are the reversal of the accrual made for the invoice value at the time of goods receipt. Lines 6 and 8 are the reversal of the GRNI posting for inventory value. And lastly, lines 3 and 7 are the resultant final entries on the supplier ledger, a credit, and inventory finished goods value, a debit. So now we know that the transaction type and posting type, with a little practice, can help us understand the nature of the transaction. But what about where it posts to? Well, we can match these transactions and posting types directly to the posting profile. Posting profiles are beyond the scope of this video, but let's open two windows and do the mapping. Here, I've opened the inventory posting setup. The module, or transaction type, is shown across the top, and the detail, or posting type is shown to the side. On our voucher, the transaction type is purchase order, so we select the purchase order tab on the posting profile. Now, we can use the posting type to find the precise setup. Here, for example, is the purchase accrual, account 200140. And here is the cost of purchase materials received, account 140200. That was quite a lot of detail. Let's just recap a few points. First, we saw how the transaction origin helps us to see the full impact of the voucher in both the general ledger and also the subledgers. Next, the original document feature was used to navigate back to the source of the transactions. Remember, a document in Dynamics language is not just a physical document like an invoice, but also any other system entry that produces vouchers. Finally, we used the posting type and transaction type on the voucher to interpret entries, and to map them to the posting profile. Every transaction is different, so a little experience and practice is required here. Please have a go yourself. Pick an entry in your own system, and try to trace its origin, source, and profile mapping. Can you find the profile setup? Do you understand why the posting is there? That's all for this one. I hope you learnt something new. Be sure to check out the other great videos and playlists on our channel.